Yeah, I just want to welcome everybody to Starfish Mission. This is yet another meetup. We're going to be talking about non-fungible tokens. Welcome. Hand it off to Rudy. Yeah, take it away. Give it up for Rudy.
All right. Is my voice loud enough? Good. All right. Cool. Cool. Yeah. Thanks, Matt, for having me. Alicia, wherever she is. Oh, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. I wasn't trying to get on Netflix. So yeah, I just wanted to say thanks again to Starfish Mission, and it's really cool. My first time here was in early May, I think, when they had an Ethereum design jam, and fast forward like several weeks, I'm reading about Starfish Mission in the Korean press. So this is quite amazing. They're partnering with a couple of other blockchain co-working spaces that I know in Tokyo and Seoul, and I just think the visibility that Starfish Mission has is insane. People in Korea know about this, in Japan know about this. So great, kudos to Matt and Alicia.
A lot of help.
Yeah, so today we'll be talking about non-fungible tokens. This is not a super technical discussion. It's more for the purpose of introducing the concept, some of its early applications, and potentially where it could go to. Specifically, personally, I'm very interested in the application of non-fungible tokens in the content creation space. So towards the end of the discussion, I'll be heading the talk a little bit towards that. And when we usually talk about blockchain, obviously it's cryptocurrencies first, and then you're thinking about storage value, all that stuff. But the point here is that I think non-fungible tokens are still a little bit underrated. So it's not just the ERC20 tokens, not just those types of tokens, but the non-fungible tokens that could really disrupt the world as much as the ERC20s have. And before we get into the main part of the event, I'll just take a couple of minutes to introduce my team and what we're doing. So VRX Lab, before I started VRX Lab, I was a screenwriter and film director operating mostly in Korea. My first company was called 37 Degree. It's still operating in 3 continents. We do primarily commercials, music videos, and films involving Asian celebrities, K-pop stars, things like that. So my background was always just content creation, production. But a few years ago, I randomly walked into a VR exhibit, and I thought, this is nuts. It's going to change the world, so we should probably get into VR, AR, MR, that domain. So then I started VRX Lab a couple years ago. We started out in China. Today we're based in Shanghai and Seoul. We started out in Shanghai. We have a lot of different partner companies and teammates. Today we're a company of about 20 people. We've built usually mobile AR tech and products. Our latest product is a mobile AR content creation app called Tiny. I'll show you a little bit of how it works. When we launched, we did okay on Product Hunt. Okay. So essentially, you can record voice messages. You can pick a spot where to place any kind of digital character. I'm saying, when are we going to the moon, or let's go into the moon or something. I'm recording that. And then speech to text, it recognizes what I'm saying, gives you that word balloon, gives you some emojis to play around with, and then are we going to the moon? So each character has its unique voice filter that kind of warps my voice, and then I can upload that onto Instagram or whatever other social media channel that I choose. So it's really a complementary AR content creation application for any social media. Okay. We're pretty multinational. Our team comes from I think almost 10 different countries. Our investors come from 4 different countries: Japan, Korea, US, China, and that's That's it. That's us. That's our Shanghai team. That's our Korea team. We usually like to do really bizarre, crazy things for our company retreats. Yeah. So moving on to like the main topic of today, non-fungible tokens. I think the non-fungible token concept can be very easily understood by gamers first because of the pain point that they've had over decades, I guess. So that's a game called Petville, if anyone is familiar with it. Zynga killed off the game in 2012. MAU for Petville was still at 1 million. And for various strategic and business reasons, they killed off the game. So, to date, every day they get comments on their Facebook page saying, I miss my pet. And they're super angry or frustrated or sad. But obviously, there's nothing that Zynga can do about this. If it's gone from the server, it's gone. So, case in point, really. But that logic really applies to anything that we spend money on, whether you're buying an emote in Fortnite, or buying stickers in a Messenger app, or buying filters off of your favorite camera app. Really, same thing. Any of these companies could basically alter or delete the items at will. And I think that's something that hasn't gone unnoticed in the gaming and the crypto community. So we've seen a lot of crypto games pop up, which is something that we'll also get into. So yeah, for obvious reasons, maybe Ethereum today is not the perfect solution, but regardless, using a blockchain network does go a long way to significantly aiding this issue. So CryptoKitties, by far the most famous example, super early pioneers, outdid CryptoPunks in a number of different ways, introduced the ERC-721 protocol. For who is not familiar with CryptoKitties? Perfect. Yeah, so CryptoKitties, I think, changed the landscape, and what we've seen in the 7-8 months since their launch is not just a lot of different services that try to do what CryptoKitties does, but it's really opened up the discussion for non-fungible tokens and where they can go. And it's been very interesting for me, based in China and Korea, where the digital character business is booming. If you think about some of the household names like Hello Kitty or whatever, a lot of this stems from Japan, China, Korea, etc. And there's been a lot of interest from MNCs like Tencent or Naver or Line to either invest in or acquire blockchain startups with the intent to develop non-fungible token businesses. Just a few weeks ago, I was in Tokyo presenting at another meetup for our service and non-fungible tokens, and immediately off the bat, we were approached by several e-commerce companies from Japan that wanted to integrate non-fungible tokens into their existing services. So I think the interest is very real from a business perspective. And I guess if the really first wave was CryptoKitties, then immediately we started seeing Rarebits, OpenSea, and then Decentraland Marketplace is doing okay, pretty good. So we started to see from independent, kind of siloed crypto games or suppliers to this kind of open format marketplace business models. And then obviously with CryptoKitties, you have a lot of add-ons, kitty hats, things like that, where you can just leverage all the existing code for CryptoKitties. So I think it's a really cool example of what you can do, and it's certainly stimulated a lot of the developers in the community to build out different applications. DAppRadar, I only included this because this and the revamped UI, because I think it still shows that we're in super early stages for dApps, and particularly entertainment-driven dApps. Obviously, the DApps are going to do always pretty well, but it's super super early, so I think there's still so much more potential for the crypto games and the crypto entertainment-driven services to grow. I'm going to run through this really quickly since all of you guys are familiar with CryptoKitties. If you haven't ever used CryptoKitties and purchased a cat or any other crypto collectible, this would be worth looking at. So CryptoBots is it's another very similar service to CryptoKitties. You buy bots instead of cats, and they're a Russian company. Once you have your wallet address from you, and then you log into MetaMask, you're going to see. This is what the marketplace of CryptoBots looks like. You're automatically logged in via your MetaMask into your CryptoBots account. You're looking at whatever crypto collectible you want to buy. For this, I'm looking at only the cheap ones. You can see your activities here. They'll redirect you to either scan to track all the records and a smart contract address of CryptoBots or whatever service you're using. So I'm just going to go buy the cheapest one. Check my balance. I'll leave the gas cost as it is, and then let's say submit it. It doesn't take too long. I'll have my CryptoBot ready. Now here, what I do want to try to identify in this clip is so when we get on Understand, very typical, screen, right? And it's really important for non-fungible tokens because this integer, or I guess digit that you see here, will be the basis of your non-fungible tokens. Anytime you sell it or read it with some other non-fungible token or potentially in the future rent it out, all that stuff, that'll be all added in this log here, and then that's going to be the starting point of all of your for that particular non-fungible token, all your activities. So moving on to an exploration of what exactly non-fungible tokens are. And again, CryptoKitties was extremely influential because they first introduced the ERC 721, and we will talk about other standards that are inspired by 721. But I guess the first issue to discuss here is ERC 20 versus ERC 721. Obviously, ERC 20 was a super influential standard that essentially allowed the Ethereum network to be used for 80% of all ICOs just because it's so easy to use. But when we think about these two standards, essentially you're thinking about dollar bills and baseball cards. So ERC 20, you are minting a whole bunch of coins that mean the same thing and are valued in the same way. Whereas for ERC 721, the non-fungible tokens, it's like printing a unique baseball card. The year means every year, whether it's upper deck or tops, or what player is there, what edition this is, all of that impacts the value it has and the meaning and significance it has, as well as its usage. So that's the core difference between 721s and 20s. And so each CryptoKitty is also a non-fungible token backed by or represented by, if you remember going back to the Etherscan screenshot, all of the metadata there. So all of that, each one of these is a non-fungible token, and essentially you can attach it with any kind of asset. But for now, I think the applications have been mostly focused on digital artwork, digital items within games, etc. So, looking into a couple of different standards. Yes.
So I wanted to ask about the CryptoKitties or crypto robots. What is the main use? Like, when you get a kitty or when you get a robot, do you grow it? Do you just like it in exchange for other people? Do you just make other kitties?
What was the last one? Do you grow it? Do you hold it? Do you make?
Make with other kitties or other
yeah.
people? What do you
Yeah. Yeah, so that's something that I do want to discuss. Extensibility-wise, it's super low, or even zero actually, with the early crypto games. So crypto kitties and crypto bots, what you do is you buy and you hold, and then you sell. You can mate as well, so you can breed. And then there's a DNA process, there's a gene process, so that depending on when you code the algorithm, you have like eye type, hair type, body color, tail type, whatever. And then for each category, you have a multitude of inputs of values that you can get. So that gives you a final range of like a million or several million different types of kitties that you can derive from this service, this algorithm. Within that range, when you have cat A and cat B, you can make them to create cat C that is based on the logic there. So the gameplay, like you said, the gameplay is super limited. And I think it's very unfair to call them games. They're not games, they're just like crypto collectible collecting services, that's it. But
because it's not a bait, like it's possible to create a game, right?
Yeah. So that's the reason that it's not, the gameplay is not so advanced is largely tied to network speed, scalability, and then and then as well as the willingness of existing IP holders and larger companies to collaborate with blockchain developers or blockchain companies. MLB has been super open, so that's been one of the more recent crypto games to come out, MLB Crypto. That's I think a huge landmark, but really gameplay is very limited at this stage. And I think so. If the gameplay is so limited, why the hell would you do this? Is probably the first question. I think the first question was at the time when we rewind to like late November when CryptoKitties was launched. It was just like it's very scammy, even, but you can't help but acknowledge that this was at the time a very innovative use. There's just nothing that was quite like it before. So I think people were very intrigued by it. And it was on a bull run anyway, so I think those were a couple of factors. But I think also the core idea that finally you have some kind of a digital collectible, however useful or not it is, it's just totally yours to own on the Ethereum chain. I think that appealed to a lot of people. And then the rest is, I think, a lot of snowballing effect. So ERC20, obviously in the real world, it's not just every single item is a unique item. We have, for example, like in art, we have reprints, and each reprint is different, but, we have a series of reprints. For example, like even Hearthstone cards, we have multiple cards that are exactly the same. Their identifier numbers may be different, but their value and their usage is exactly the same. So to kind of accommodate for this reality, ERC20 is a different standard that allows you to mint non-fungible tokens, yet not every one of them is unique, and you have like sets of same tokens. ERC 998 is a very powerful, influential standard. This was, I guess, brought to the fore by kitty cats. So when CryptoKitties came out, it was just cats, right? And then the crypto community fan base is probably one of the, if not the most loyal and passionate crypto game community out there. And some of the developers who were CryptoKitties loyalists, they were like, hey, why aren't we dressed like cats? So using the CryptoKitties code, what they did was they offered a service where you could match different hats with your cats. So NFTP stands for, I think it's like non-fungible token possessions or something. So but the core concept is composables, the idea is that you have two different NFTs, right? And then you merge it together to form a new NFT. And the great thing about this is that if you look at any contract, any 1998 contract, the terminology here is parent and child. So the original token would be called parent, and then whatever is created based on the merger of the tokens would be the child. But the great thing is that you can demerge it, you can delink it at will as well using smart contracts. So it's very easy to compose and decompose entities. And I think if you're looking at it from like purely this perspective, it might be a little bit goofy, but the concept of composables and decomposables is so strong because you could apply it to any kind of real-world financial instrument. And I think here is something that something really great that they've touched on. Finally, one last thing that I'd like to introduce. This is not so new now. Probably was introduced a couple months ago. 1155 is a very interesting standard as well because it's very good for scalability. What that means is still if you have any kind of a token, you need to get it approved. If you have 5, you need to get it approved 5 times. So there's a lot of needless, redundant data that's taking up all the block space. So essentially, these are grouped atomic swaps that ERC 1155 allows. You're saying, hey, okay, we have like 100 or 500 different NFTs. They're going to be swapped for this, but the manner in which they will be swapped is very, very similar, if not the same. So we're just going to rehash all the code and we'll do it at once. So 1155 is the idea to kind of scale this trading system. And today, I guess the most easiest way of visualizing this real world application is in MMO games, where you have a lot of trades going on at the same time, and it's just all the same items or similar items. You're just buying up with all the items. So I think in that kind of scenario, I think this kind of a standard would be very, very useful. All right, so I think based on my conversations, really personal, but my conversations with people, they've included investors, developers, random non-blockchain related people, but still, most of the time when I talk about non-fungible tokens, the majority of their response is like, so what does it mean? I think it's very natural for people to be thinking a lot more about non-fungible tokens because we created currencies and money in the first place to acquire goods, and non-fungible tokens are goods, they're digital goods. So we created digital currencies first, but going this way is very natural. I think K-1commerce, non-fungible token commerce is also going to be, I think it will steadily increase as well, just based on the inquiries that we've received from different e-commerce players. So if we use our imagination a little bit, it's like, all right, so what else can you use this for? I'm thinking primarily from like a performer, influencer, celebrity, fandom, that kind of a background. But if I think about this from that kind of perspective, I think NFTs could be proof of experience. So what that means is, let's say you're a fan of some celebrity or a cause or whatever. You do some task that is verifiable online. And then based on that task, you get rewarded an NFT. And this can later be converted into some other benefits, such as it could be something as standard as a ticket or to a concert or something. But obviously, when we move on, these can be badges, status symbols, diplomas, all that, whatever thing that we already use physically or digitally to prove that we did something or we went somewhere, all that could be NFT. So that's like I think the bigger picture of all the possibilities. But personally, I'm a lot more focused on digital goods in the world of content creation. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the things that I'm interested in. I think digital assets the most easiest to understand individual characters have been with us for such a long time, you know, two-dimensionally with Disney and three-dimensionally with Pixar and everything after that. We've already had a lot of content created with characters and assets. And now, with the advent of AR and VR, we see a lot of digital assets being used in content that is social media. And it's interesting to kind of see the progress, because with earlier, Snapchat filters, for example, digital characters are more of props. Whether you're making a cat face or whatever it is, they're more props for your story on social media. But with these kinds of, whether they're in human likeness or not, these characters in this format, they're becoming less props but more protagonists for content creation. And this is slightly different. I mean, it's not VR, AR, but I think animojis and the emojis, they have a lot to offer us in terms of imagination. Our daily communication and the method, the content method that we use to engage in daily communication is now also using digital assets. And I just think that's going to grow. It's not an alien concept at all. It's these are some of the more recent examples, but Second Life, what is that? I don't even know, like probably 20 years old or something like that. And granted, they're not Facebook, but they still have like a couple million active users today still. Allspace VR, again, not a huge hit, but acquired by Microsoft, and there's a lot of like IMU, a lot of these like social networks using digital avatars and digital creators to create some kind of life for you online. That and games like Roblox gets me thinking. So what I really love about Roblox is that it's an amazing, first of all, you have like 10-year-olds that were Roblox users who are now 18 and they're still playing Roblox. And their numbers, like MAU, is pretty impressive as well. Like I think it's like 65 million or something. But that alone is not what I'm interested in. I think Roblox is exactly like Battleground or Fortnite, but for a much wider demographic. So when you get home and when you play Roblox, you're chatting, with your friends while you're playing games, but you're not really talking about the game. You're just playing games because just calling is kind of awkward sometimes, so you have to do something together. And so these characters offer like kind of a lubricant for your conversations. That and also the fact that you can easily import your own assets into Roblox or customize your Roblox characters, as well as develop your own mini games within Roblox. What all this means for me is that the kids today that are like 10 to 18, that bracket, they're growing up in a world where it's so natural for them to have digital avatars and digital characters that take some part, if not a large part, in their communication. Not just gameplay, but just communication. So I think from that perspective, content creation with digital assets has to grow. And then now I want to introduce a couple of my favorite examples. This is Kizuna Ai. She's a virtual YouTuber, totally fictitious. She's not based on any human being. She's just her. And she has over 2 million subscribers on YouTube. And this is the kind of thing that she does.
バーチャルゲームのキズナアイです。今日はですね、PUBG をやってみたいと思います。事前にプレイをしてみたので、多少できるのではないかという淡い期待を持っております。それでは早速行ってみよう。Watching.
Yeah. So that's not all she does. She does these like Twitch type game commentary stuff, but she also has her own skits. She sings songs, and it's a regular celebrity or an influencer. It's an actor, but in virtual format with zero attachment to humans. And she, so a couple of months ago was her second birthday, and there's this very large iconic venue in Roppongi in Tokyo it was a concert venue, and she had a sellout crowd there appear to watch her in action, which essentially means her on the screen singing and talking. And this is some footage of that. Yeah, so I think it's nuts. I think it's also so freaking amazing. But like, if you think about it, also like, you know, think about like hologram Tupac at Coachella, right? That's not crazy. Why is it not crazy? Because it's based off of an actual person. Yeah, but then why is this crazy? If this in itself has original value, then there's no reason that this is crazy either. But you know, and then you look at something like Lil Keller. She's created by she and her friends. She has a lot of friends. She and her friends are created by a startup based in LA, I think, called Bud. And you know, she already has like 1.3 million followers. She's been around for as long as she's not, a couple of years. But this now is a legitimate business because she's a three-dimensional, more person, you know, looking avatar or character, but she sports all these apparel and goods from actual brands who pay her to promote her stuff, their stuff on the feed. So what I'm trying to get at here is, I think it's not crazy that first of all, we'll have a more hybrid kind of a content creation scheme where you have a lot of digital characters, maybe as sidekicks supporting actual humans. But I think you also have like niche content that is driven primarily by just digital characters. And when you're doing that, then the nature of digital characters is that since they're not human, you don't the management and the agency stuff is a lot less. So you could just do it with smart contracts. I see no reason why you can't do this with smart contracts. And from a supplier perspective, from like a producer perspective, it's so much more cost effective to use digital characters anyway. So I think we will see an increase in stuff like this. And I just heard this a couple of days ago from one of our investors in Japan. So one of our investors is like one of the largest gaming companies in Japan, and the guy that specifically worked on our deal told me, oh, you know this other guy that I met earlier, he left that company to go work at the Kizuna Eye company as an executive there. And Japan is Japan is crazy, but still, I think the fact that so many people are getting into this and that there's economic reasons to get into this, for me is just very strong proof that this does have a future. And so, as crazy as this sounds, I never thought I would actually say this at an event, but yeah, you know, crypto actors, why not? But essentially, it's just the idea of using smart contracts for digital assets and content, which that's not. Anyway, so NFT as digital goods, I think we have a pretty large, big future there. And then to wrap this talk, I want to introduce a little bit about what we're doing. And we're launching a service called the Dyverse. One of the things, as you rightly mentioned, is like, what are you supposed to do with this? And I think we don't have the best answer, but I think we have improved upon the existing options. So we're kind of like an open sea, if you will, that focuses strictly on 3D assets and also offers distribution channels. So let me get into that. I think extensibility is super important because if you can't do anything with your CryptoKitties, then it's kind of like the fun dies and you're just waiting for somebody to like buy your kitty at a higher price. So what we do is we already, if you remember, like we had a mobile AR content creation app that we already launched. We can easily insert any kind of 3D assets that people buy off of our marketplace into our application, but not just ours. Any other AR app, VR app, and as well as Roblox. So Roblox users, as well as any other 3D game users, can also, if they buy our products, they can use them in whatever game they play. But also the interesting thing is, since we're dealing with 3D assets, we're also offering opportunities for users to have tangible art toys of whatever non-fungible token-based characters that they purchase. So yeah. And the art toy, why we decided to work with art toys is not really because we can, but because of what it can mean for the larger blockchain community. So, you know, the biggest argument against CryptoKitties or crypto games or anything like that is like, there's like 1 million users on MetaMask. How are you going to onboard the rest to buy Ether and use Ether to buy whatever collectible, right? Well, so we're launching a Kickstarter campaign where we're giving out 3D art toys of whatever non-fungible token-based unique character that you're buying, and we're also offering you an NFT. So let's say you're a Jane Doe or John Doe somewhere, and you don't have an Ether, you don't have a wallet address. But you get on a Kickstarter campaign, and then you pay, you know, in fiat to purchase one of our characters for $30 or whatever it is. We automatically generate a wallet address for you. We have a very customized and a general how to clip and manual for you. And then, but you don't even have to access that when you just want to enjoy the toy and also the character. Because once you purchase the art toy, we will automatically put in your account in our AR app and any other app you're using, we will automatically insert the digital character that you just bought. So you can just enjoy it without having to install MetaMask or anything. But now when you want to trade it, you know, when you want to sell it or when you want to breed it, then you do have to install MetaMask and you do have to you know, get some Ether and do all this. So we're basically deferring all of that onboarding process until the user has some, if not significant, experience playing around with the actual output that their non-fungible token represents. So we're hoping that that makes it easier for some people, and we think this is something that NFT developers and the community should also test out along with us. I put this here as an example because art toys are indeed a very, very large business. They're very popular with people. Kid Robot, one of the more famous art toy businesses, we have been in contact with them, and they're also super interested, and they're already talking to us and CryptoKitties. So even for the art toy people, this is something that they're noticing.
When is your Kickstarter campaign?
When?
Yeah.
End of the month, I think, is when we'll launch. Yeah, we'll definitely let you all know about it. I mean, what we really want to do is like we want to create an easy, cheap experience. I don't think you should have to pay like hundreds of dollars for a kitty or whatever. Just a small amount of money, and then you get to understanding the idea of NFTs, onboarding, and you use it in an actual application. I think that's where the real value comes from. And on our end, to kind of promote NFTs and this whole idea to a much, much larger public, we're partnering with events like the Art Toy Fair. Art Toy Fair is one of the largest international art toy conferences in the world. This one was in Seoul, and they attracted over 200,000 visitors in the space of 2 days or something. So this gets you a lot of visibility, and through this we want to help kind of get out the idea. That's kind of what our marketplace UI looks like. It's very similar to all of the other crypto games out there, except that because ours is 3D, when you click and scroll your mouse over these, you can turn them in 3D. You can actually like you can expand them and get some preview of what they would look like in different applications. So to again wrap up, this was me presenting at Plug and Play several weeks ago, and their Bitcoin meetup is really good. They have a monthly Bitcoin meetup down in Sunnyvale, and they're going to start to use one of our characters as their mascots. I ran into Charlie Lee as well at our Plug and Play office, and I told him about this, and he said, "You're fucking crazy." So I think he mentioned it in a very positive way because then he added "Go blow up the dream." But I think it is crazy in a way, but it's. He sold off all his likeness. But yeah, and then we had a couple of events everywhere else. Like this one was for an LA event, this one was for Beijing, and we had a few others in other cities. The overwhelming question that I get when I go to these events and people talk to me is, where do I use my non-fungible token? That's a great question. I'm like, yeah, so you use it, at least with us, use it in VR, AR applications, you can create content off of it, broadcast on YouTube, etc. That's probably not what everyone wants, but it's at least something that you can do with it, and we hope that even if we don't provide the answer for everyone, there will be a lot more projects like ours so that there's actually a lot of things you can do with NFTs. And yeah, so again, not trying to paint a speculative picture about this, but I thought this would be a nice bookend. So yeah, again, going back to the whole point that tokens, non-fungible tokens are the other half of tokens as well. And I think we should definitely pay a lot more attention to this. There's a lot more things that we can do there. So thanks for listening, and be happy to chat with you guys, take questions or whatnot. Yes, that's our website. Right now it's just a landing page. You can sign up. When you sign up, all it means is you're getting newsletters and private updates. Those are some of our other social media channels. If you want to talk to me at all about specific, collaboration related stuff, then it's not here, but write to me at rudy@dyverse.com, RUDY. Thank you. Yeah. So you want to have any questions or comments?
Do you have an API for your platform?
Oh, great question. No, but people have been asking, so I think we bumped it up on our priorities. I think by the end of the year we'll have some kind of an SDK or an API, hopefully probably ready.
What's the best implementation you have seen when it comes to integrating NFTs with concert experiences, concert or like events?
Ooh. Console, right?
Concert, like events?
Oh, concert. Oh, concert. Sorry. Oh, that one is probably a lot easier. So the way we do it, we're talking to a couple of management companies for like hip-hop celebrities and singers. And for that, it's all of them have online merchants and channels that they work with, right? So it's just on the back end, we just give them some way of translating the NFT, the metadata on the NFT into some kind of a data that they can read, and that's not so difficult. Yeah.
From what I understand, the whole problem with CryptoKitties was caused by like the breeding was very computationally intensive. Like, what have you seen in terms of like thinking for like scaling out to a large audience with Ethereum as it exists today?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So CryptoKitties gets a lot of they get some criticism because they're not fully decentralized, and rightfully so. If you try to do all of that, it just wouldn't be fast enough. And so we're also doing the same. We're adopting like some centralized approaches, and I think the way to do it is, we're trying to. We actually, once we started building this and we realized like how the genome stuff is ridiculously complicated. We thought, why are we doing this? And then I think an easier way that we're approaching is probably just have like a limited edition, and that's going to be our pipeline. Instead of bringing the genes into this, I think we'll step away from that. Our initial batch of characters, we have 1 million total. That's all like engineered the same way as CryptoKitties. But beyond that, it'll just be collaborations with artists, creators, influencers to have a very limited supply that still leverages certain gene economics, but definitely not to that extent.
How do you get around the gas costs? Like, if you have 1 million, art assets, and you need to put them in their own wallets, that's like, at 14 cents, that's like $14 million, right?
Yeah. Did you see at the Design Jam?
Yeah. A few months ago.
Yeah, cool. Nice to see you again. Yeah, that's a extremely important point. We're not sure. I think that I think depends on, well, it is related to how a project decides to space out its generation 0 creation timeline. For us, it's like an hour, 1 for every hour. So it's slower than CryptoKitties speed, but it's not a lot slower because we still want to offer those Gen Zeros at decently short windows. But so adjusting the timelines, I guess, accounts for it a little bit, and then after that, there's no real good solution. So we've been looking into a couple of other ways. We've been looking into integrating with Loom, developing on EOS, a couple of other ways, and I just don't have a great answer for that. Yeah.
Could you talk about, you were talking about Linicella, these digital characters that have a sort of an existence, and I like what how do you say K-1commerce characters. But could you go back and, I thought you were trying to make a point about these digital characters that, I assume that there's a group of producers making those characters for the YouTube concert that we saw. Are you suggesting that maybe they would own Linicella as an NFT, and that they could sell her as a franchise if they so? Was that where you were heading, or were you just using it as an example of a digital character of life?
That's absolutely right. So going back to that, when my experience talking to influencers, whatever platform they're on, has been that there's a couple of pain points for them. One is that sometimes they're just tired. They're like hungover, whatever it is. They don't want to put on makeup. They don't want to go out. They don't want to do the broadcast. They have to. So it's very it's good for them if they have some kind of a deputy that they can call on. And the logic would be that, okay, if you have like 10 broadcasts, then maybe like a couple at least, you personally come on and you do the show, maybe with your digital character. But then a few of those, it could be like solo by the digital character. And you can have a lot of different characters too. Because another pain point is that, for example, if you start off as like let's say like a travel themed influencer, you can't just suddenly become like an influencer for shoes. I mean, you kind of can, but that kind of dilutes everything. So you need to create multiple personas to work with this, and that's where something like this could also come in very handy. So there's that. And then going back to your question about how we actually use smart contracts to manage and operate these digital characters. So what we're looking at is the primary things we're looking at is multiple ownership and rental, by which I mean, okay, so let's say you're a big fan of Lil Miquela, and it could be Lil Miquela herself, which might be a lot more expensive, but it could be some other item or some other like sibling character that Lil Miquela has introduced. You could purchase those, but you don't have to pay for all the costs yourself, and you could split it with 100 different fans or 1,000 different fans and know that you have some equity in that character. Which, interestingly enough, is there's a couple of ICOs. We're not doing an ICO, we have no relation to that, but there's a couple of ICOs that are singer, celebrity themed kind of points. And so the issue for that is that if a lot of fans buy up a lot of coins, then they have a lot of governance over what happens with these characters. I think something similar is decent here. And then rental is another idea that we're very interested in. Previously, it's just today, if it's impossible for you as an influencer or a personality to rent yourself out by very small increments, but I think you can do that with digital characters.
You can make an appearance on a game show or something like that. Is that
Right. It's just, you structure it however you want. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Do you think the NFTs will revitalize the journalism and journalism industry?
Journalism.
Yeah.
Oh.
With the articles and the subscription models, because the subscription models are so expensive that they have to keep the prices very high. But it limits the number of people who subscribe. But if you can subscribe with small now, you can purchase each article.
Yeah.
And then read,
Yeah, I mean, I haven't thought about that at all, to be honest. I did chat with BTC Media earlier today, who were interested in what we were doing from a general media perspective. The idea of saying, hey, there's these literally crypto-based journalists, because they can be, to talk about news and crypto news as well, is something I guess that was very interesting. But for everyday content, text-based content, I'm not personally sure what we would have, what we could do with that. But yeah, I mean, you can also just structure NFTs in whatever way you want. Maybe there's some people there, but honestly, I don't know much about it. Sorry, did you?
Yes. I mentioned being able to integrate in different AR settings and stuff. I'm thinking about the potential for brands and whether y'all are able to be part of I don't know, Facebook Live or a Snapchat story. So if a brand is at a conference or in some environment, they would be able to have this special filter that people who have their token could somehow use from the access to this non-fungible token, or I don't know, kind of just different uses of this for brands, because I think that could be really powerful.
Yeah, the answer is yes. So we don't have any official relationship at the moment with something like Stories or Instagram or Snapchat, but it is fairly easy to integrate any of our 3D assets into something like Snapchat. I mean, you just get on Lens Studio or Facebook's AR Studio and you just manually put it in there. And then that's there for it to be used by you or brands or anyone. And then, distance from that, you could still trade that filter or trade that asset on Ethereum based on this.
When you send the contract, you cannot change it technically. So how do you version?
No, contracts are upgradable. Moderate smart contracts are upgradable.
If you include that.
Yeah, if you want to make them upgradable.
Is there a version 2 CryptoKitties that is going to come out in the process?
Well, where were you going with this question?
My question is how do you move your users from one type of characters to AR characters to another versions? Because when you upgrade your server, when you play a game, you upgrade your server, you just deploy to a server, new clients.
I see.
Everyone has new characters. How do
I
you
see.
move people from one version to another?
If I understood you correctly, then you're saying when we have our first batch of characters, right, and then we have a second, third, fourth batch,
Yeah.
what's the relation
Yeah.
between the?
How would you do
Yeah.
it? If
Oh.
I have this one, will I have the version 3? Or
No.
not? Because that's
So you won't, because they'll be totally independent, originally created different lineups. So you won't. But going back to, I mean, there's different types of tweaks that you can make, and when we're writing our contracts, we're trying to make them as comprehensive as possible so we can accommodate future changes. But for that particular issue, it's just you gotta get new ones.
Those that we're referring to, the new
yeah, so anyway, if you guys don't have any other questions or comments, thank you so much for coming out. And again, thank you to Matt and Alicia. It's great. I think, oh, sweet. Yeah, so I think for those of you who are interested, I'll be going to somewhere nearby, very, very close, maybe Forgery or Hotspot, to grab a beer or something. Please feel free to join if you want. Yeah, thanks for coming out.